Oh, thank you all for tuning in to another edition of Outside the Shop with me, your host, Daryl D. Lane, where I get to talk about everything that I normally don't get to talk about on my regular sports podcast. Barbershop Sports Talk, which you all can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, all your podcasting apps and platforms. And as well, I'm also going to start posting more clips on my YouTube channel, Daryl Lane. If you just type in Daryl Lane, you can find it. Subscribe to that. And just little clips, 7 to 10 minutes, sometimes maybe 13-minute clips of the podcast, and I'll just put it up on there so it's just easier to consume for everybody. Also, everybody can tune in and maybe have a little bit of a distraction from all the craziness that's going if you're watching CNN, Fox, MSNBC, any of those news affiliations. Definitely going to be a little bit more lighthearted here on Outside the Shop. Also, had Brett Swader on my last podcast, and dived into it, and you'll get that clip. I posted the clip down below on the definition of all the descriptions of what we have on the podcast on the show today, and have him on. We talk a lot of Justin Fields, since he's a Georgia fan, why Justin Fields left Georgia, went to Ohio State. We delved into, Brett has some ideas in terms of how we can change the college football playoffs. We also talked about Wild Card Weekend, the NFL, also on the college football side. He grew up in Georgia, really close, about an hour proximity away from Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, and they kind of have a budding rivalry. So he talks about that as well, and some other goodness. Really good podcast. I recommend you all check it out. And like I said, we're going to be posting clips of that interview and conversation on the YouTube channel. So without ado, let's get started. So Trevor Lawrence declares for the 2021 NFL Draft. Folks, Trevor Lawrence has one of the most underrated careers in college football history. And I know it's not great. It's not a Deshaun Watson type, multiple national championships, or a Tim Tebow type, or somebody that got a couple Heismans, or a Heisman. It wasn't that. But let's think about this. Since he's been a starter, only 2 losses. That's amazing. 3 ACC titles, 1 national championship, 2 national championship appearances, and one of his national championship losses came against LSU in 2018, 2019-2020 LSU football team. That's one of the greatest football teams ever. One of the greatest football teams ever. And that was his loss. Also, iconic moments against Ohio State last year in that epic battle, the long breakaway run that he had against Ohio State. Just a special career. Even this year, right? They lose to Ohio State, but special stuff from Trevor Lawrence. Also, I think it's really interesting to look at the fact that one of the best quarterback prospects I've ever seen. People talk about how great Peyton Manning was coming out. People talk about how great Andrew Luck was coming out. This guy, Trevor Lawrence, has no weaknesses. I think the only thing is he can be a little bit too careless and too carefree with the ball. We kind of saw that in the Ohio State game where he had some fumbles, had some turnovers, but he can throw it deep. He can throw it intermediate. He can throw the short passes. He understands the game. He can call audibles at the line of scrimmage. He's a leader. He doesn't seem like he's involved in other things that, guys that were first-round picks like a Johnny Manziel might have been involved in. This guy loves football. He was playing late into the fourth quarter against Ohio State with so much money on the line. He loves football because that's why he was doing it. So I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be great for whichever NFL team gets him. Now, on other college football notes, DeVonta Smith awarded the 2020 Heisman Trophy. What an amazing story. DeVonta Smith kind of said, he said, this is a lesson to all you kids out there. You don't have to be the biggest. You don't have to be the strongest. Just keep working and keep pushing. I think it's really interesting, too, particularly since DeVonta Smith is a wide receiver. It's a dependent position. Usually when we see Heisman Trophy winners, we see quarterbacks 1, running backs 2 occasionally, and DeVonta Smith has broken that mold. A lot of people thought it'd be Mac Jones over the course of the year, the beginning of the year, a Kyle Trask, a Trevor Lawrence, and he comes out of nowhere and he wins it. I think you can argue he's been the best college football player all year. Trevor Lawrence was hurt. He's a better football player than Kyle Trask, and he's a better football player than Mac Jones as well, in my opinion. So props to DeVonta Smith. Now, I do want to talk about this. So, the Heisman votes, DeVonta Smith had 447 first-place votes. 447 first-place votes. Second highest votes were Trevor Lawrence at 222. That's a huge gap. That's a huge gap. That means the Heisman voters were telling us it was not close. It was DeVonta Smith by far, which I find really interesting when we look at this in the big perspective, that they would have a gap with DeVonta Smith, and then have DeVonta Smith all the way up here, and a guy like Trevor Lawrence all the way up here. I think that's very shocking. Also, I do have to say this, and I have to give some idiot awards. Whoever gave Ian Book, quarterback out of Notre Dame, he got 5 first place Heisman votes. Ian Book. Whoever did that should be fired. They should lose their Heisman credentials. That's just not okay, and that's wrong. Zach Wilson got some votes as well. Bryce Hall from Iowa State. Just a couple bad first place votes. These guys shouldn't be getting first place votes. It's shameful. I could even understand a guy like Justin Fields, even though Ohio State played half the year, why he would get some votes and it would make some sense, even though I don't know why he's getting first place votes, since we're talking about Justin Fields prior to the college football semifinal game, right? So it is what it is, but not a fan of those votes. Now, next up where I want to get to is the 2021 Heisman Trophy odds. Spencer Rattler, quarterback of Oklahoma, and Bryce Young, backup quarterback at Alabama right now, highly touted freshman, potentially could be starting next year if Mac Jones leaves and declares for the NFL draft. Here's the great thing about the Heisman Trophy. All the times when we have a winner, it's not who you expect. Coming into the preseason, nobody thought DeVonta Smith would be the Heisman Trophy winner. DeVonta Smith was the third best wide receiver on Alabama last year. The best wide receiver was Jerry Jeudy. The second best wide receiver was Henry Ruggs. The third best wide receiver was DeVonta Smith. He was their number 3 wide receiver. He was Tua Tagovailoa's number 3 option last year, and now he's here the best wide receiver in the country and a Heisman Trophy winner. If you go back before Joe Burrow, nobody knew about Joe Burrow. If you go to when RG3 won as a redshirt freshman, nobody knew about RG3. You go to Johnny Manziel as a redshirt freshman, nobody knew about him. The Heisman winner is somebody we always don't expect. So I think it's crazy to think that we have a Spencer Rattler and he's odds-on favorite to win. It's like, this guy's not going to win because it's never the favorite. That's just the way the award works. Now, on the NFL front, Lamar Jackson's number 1 goal is to dismiss the narrative that he can't win in the playoffs. So I do have to say this, narratives, eventually they become reality, right? Because we keep talking about it. I think even the player believes it. Because I think really the biggest thing with Lamar is it's not even that Lamar's not good in the playoffs. It's the fact that since we're all talking about it and he hasn't won, he's starting to kind of doubt himself, right? It's kind of like you're seeing this and you're like, why is it working in the regular season at the highest level, but now it's not working now? And I just want to read some of his postseason stats of his 2 combined games. Now, he played the Chargers as a rookie in the wild card round. As a second-year player and a MVP, it was an MVP year last year, he lost to the Tennessee Titans. 78 and 63 quarterback rating, so not great. Not a great quarterback rating at all. Also, 50% completion percentage around. He had 48% in one game, 52% in the other. Not great for a quarterback, and particularly one who's MVP of the league. 11 sacks, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I think 3 total fumbles and 1 fumble as a runner, so 4 fumbles. So not good. Not great play, particularly from a guy that supposed to be the league MVP, a guy that's supposed to be carrying the team, that's supposed to be the guy being the force multiplier, the guy that's supposed to be driving the bus, right? He's driving the bus. He's not being carried on the bus, and he has not played like that. So I think against the Titans, this is a big, kind of legacy-defining game for Lamar in his 3rd year, and it's really early. But what's the narrative on Lamar going to be? Because listen, folks, the Titans, they're 4th. They have the 4th worst pass defense in the NFL. The Titans are not a good pass defense. Their corners are suspect, and they can't rush the passer. Lamar Jackson should be able to throw the ball fairly well, and they should be able to put up points. This should not be Lamar Jackson struggles in the passing offense. That should not be the story when Wild Card Weekend is over, and we're talking all about this on Monday. Should not be the story. And lastly, JCU grad Nick Caserio and second Patriots executive. He's second in command for the New England Patriots. The reigning GM is Bill Belichick, who's GM and coach. Nick Caserio is his second in command. Will reportedly now be the general manager of the Houston Texans. So always want to give those John Carroll guys a shout out. Doing some big things from JCU. I think I have a JCU shirt right now, right? Men and women for others, and NFL executives, NFL coaches. I think also what's interesting, too, to look at the Patriots and JCU connection, Josh McDaniels, who has reportedly been in the head coaching hunt for the last couple of years. After he spurned the Indianapolis Colts, people were not talking about Josh McDaniels a lot. I think this is a move where you could see somebody take a chance on him. Because before it was kind of like, the only place he can be a head coach is New England after what he did. After what he did to the Indianapolis Colts when he spurned them, then Frank Reich took the job. So I think this is going to be really interesting to see if Nick Caserio, right, he worked with Josh McDaniel for years in New England. They both have that college connection. Will he take a chance on him to be the head coach? Josh McDaniels is an offensive-minded guy. He's going to get to work with Deshaun Watson, who's one of the best players and one of the best quarterbacks in all the NFL. So I think it's going to be very interesting. And be on the lookout for Josh McDaniels. And that's all we have for this edition of Outside the Shop. I'm going to post this to YouTube as soon as I'm done with this video. Like I said, also check out the YouTube, Daryl Lane, and subscribe to it where I'm posting clips of my podcast as well. And check out the podcast that I released today with Brett Swader. Talked a lot of college football, dived into a little bit of NFL. Really interesting, really good conversation. Thank you all for tuning into this edition of Outside the Shop. Have a great day and God bless.